Hi kids, I got dressed up for this edition of ATAA because I felt this one required a touch of class. We all know something about the world of fashion, if even vaguely. The Devil Wears Prada, Ready to Wear, Zoolander, Heidi Klum in an underwear ad / Sia video. We also heavily associate the fashion world with photography, an incredibly beautiful and complex art in and of itself. But imagine something for just a minute. What if every single magazine cover, advertisement, or editorial, anything designed to convey to the public what the fashion world was all about, was hand-drawn or painted by an artist? Believe it or not, Vogue magazine operated for 40 years before they ever used a photograph on the cover. This was the way of it for a really long time, but one guy at the tail end of the golden age of fashion illustration made a big impact. My love of the man is that he was a genius of line and negative space, two things I adore in art. The way he lets the background disappear, the way he lets the characters dominate, the way the lines fill in the details for you, and that simplicity. God, that simplicity. That kind of simplicity is more complicated than anything else. As I said before with Kath Kolvitz, it's all in the lines. It's like poetry, saying the most with the least. And solids, primary colors, limited. I've always thought the greatest creativity comes out of limitation. Try looking at a box full of paint colors and saying, okay, today you only get 3.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Something interesting, I've always thought anyway, is that despite being at the epicenter of the fashion world, I mean, he was best friends with Christian Dior, he hung out with Givenchy and Elizabeth Arden in the 60s, for fuck's sake. This was a swinging time. I still can't get an answer on his sexuality. I love that. Wanna know why? Because it's just as ambiguous in his style. The women in RENE GRUAU illustrations, while desired, are not objects. They are not overtly sexualized. They're sophisticated. They're mysterious, they're playful, and they're dressed. The men are stylized, sharpened, strong, and sexualized, but not feminized. Men are solids, women are lines. Through his art, he created this deliberate separation of masculinity and femininity, and yet, both are alluring. Neither are distracting. He must have loved everybody. The only thing that is crystal clear is that the characters in RENE GRUAU's world are having way more fun than you.
Fashion illustration has gone from being one of the sole means of fashion communication to having a very minor role. The first photographic cover of Vogue was a watershed in the history of fashion illustration and a watershed mark of its decline. Photographs, no matter how altered or retouched, will always have some association with reality, and by association, truth. I like to think of them as prose poems and having more fictional narratives. They are more obviously filtered through an individual vision than photos. Illustration lives on, but in the position of a poor relative to the fashion.
A sad thought. So fight on, you gorgeous, rigid ladies in black turtlenecks and sequined peasant blouses, and you sharp, meticulously coiffed men in starched Oxford shirts and sequined peasant blouses also. Unscabbard your prisma-colored markers and keep that powerful force-dormant heart of fashion illustration beating.